This was my first attempt at plein-air watercolor, and I hadn't exactly made it easy for myself. The botanical garden was closing in less than an hour, so I didn't have much time to look for the best view or composition. I had to find something workable and start. And then I discovered that my main brush was ruined. This is how it went. So I'm here at the botanical garden, and I'm looking for a place where I will be able to do some sketches in watercolor in my special notebook for plein air for the first time in these conditions, and maybe I will try to film a bit of myself. And I'm looking for a place to paint. See you later. So I have found a place to sit, but it's not very ideal as for painting. And I have this wonderful little thing, and I don't know if the microphone works. We'll see. This little thing, I will show you later, is for my painting. And I have this for water. It will be really interesting. I have this pencil which I can use easily, and so I'm going to do a sketch. So I did a sketch, and this is what happened to my brush in this container. I have another one, but it's impossible almost to paint, so we'll see what I can do. Okay, I proceeded, and it looks horrible because this is the brush I have, and it's very thin. It doesn't pick any color, and I'm not very used to doing watercolor. I never know how to do it, so I'm doing what I can without even thinking too much. And it will be interesting if I can change it into anything reasonable when I come home. If I show you what I have here, you understand that it's a disaster. It's a disaster, and I don't know what to do with it, because my brushes failed me. Brushes failed me. I need new water. Otherwise, it's an interesting experience because I have a place to sit and paint and even record, even though you cannot see what I'm doing. So I will show you the disaster. Okay, it took some concentration and it didn't go too well. I'm in downtown, Saint-Bruno. Trams are going around, and I will try to make something out of this when I get home. And I will show you what it looks like now, and then you will see if I was able to improve it. But I was here. I was here and I tried. And next time better. Bye. And that was what I went home with. I knew it hadn't worked the way I wanted it to, but I also knew I would go back to it. I almost always do. If there's something in a painting that I think is worth keeping, I find it very difficult to simply accept the part that isn't working. I want to see whether I can do something about it. Looking at it afterwards, I don't think there was one single reason why the first attempt hadn't worked. It was everything together. It was my first plein-air watercolor. I had experience with watercolor, but I always used it not in the traditional way. I had less than an hour. I couldn't spend much time choosing the subject or working out the composition. And then the brush I was relying on turned out to be useless, so perhaps I had given myself a little too much to learn in one afternoon. I didn't turn it into the plein-air watercolor I had originally imagined, but I did turn it into a painting I was much happier with. And I think that's often what happens when I go back to a painting. I'm not necessarily trying to make the original attempt perfect. I'm trying to find out whether there's still a painting in there that I want to keep. The second painting was a complete different experiment. This time I wasn't outside and I wasn't painting from anything in front of me. Here I am again in my kitchen, on my kitchen table, and I'm ready to start something that I did the last time, probably before 2020, painting on canvas with acrylics. And it's crazy because as a digital artist, I didn't feel like doing it for a long time until recently, when I'm more and more longing for the encounter with the real materials. So that's what I'm going to share, and it's just a form of practice on my creative journey, and we will see where it goes. I have my little easel that I used only once, and new acrylics, which are Amsterdam. I chose these and I like them, we'll see. And I'm going to paint an abstract or fantasy city because that's all I was able to come about as for the theme. So let's have a look at my paint first. Lemon yellow. So I'm going to use this one. Medium yellow. So that's another one. I'm using this special palette paper, which is working well. And this is Pyrrole Red. Magenta, which is primary. I would like a different one. Greenish shade of this one. Ultramarine blue. Phthalo blue or green is this one, and this is phthalo green. Titanium white. Here are my brushes. I don't know if they will work. A round brush. This is a flat brush. and 2 tiny brushes because I have a lot of details. So we'll see how it works. I will definitely start with this blue, my favorite blue. As you can see, it's going very smoothly. The paint is easy to get on. And now you will say, blue road, what will the sky be? I don't know. That's the puzzle. It didn't take very long before I started running into technical problems. The composition itself wasn't really the problem. Looking at the sketch now, I actually followed it quite closely. The difficulty was making all those small shapes work in acrylic. I had chosen the wrong brushes for some of the details I wanted, and I was trying to work rather small. Digitally, that isn't something I even think about very much. I can zoom in, make the brush tiny and work on a detail for as long as I want. On canvas, suddenly the size and shape of the brush matter rather a lot. And then I created another problem for myself: too many colors. Which, considering how much I love color, was probably predictable. But instead of giving me freedom, all those choices started making the painting harder to control. But when I looked at it, one thing was already clear. The idea itself hadn't really gone wrong. The painting was actually quite close to the sketch. The strange perspective was meant to be there. The crooked buildings were meant to be there. The slightly ridiculous city was definitely meant to be there. What wasn't working yet was the definition. This was where I became very aware of one technical advantage of digital painting. The artistic decisions aren't necessarily easier, but details are. I can zoom in, change the brush size instantly, move something, or alter a color. On canvas, I had to think again about the physical mark itself. Which brush? How much paint? How small can I realistically work? So I don't know if halfway through, but I don't like it. I like some of it, and I will see if I can do something with it, and I will show you later. But now I will show you from up front what it looks like. And I discovered that I need different brushes. Also, acrylics really dry very quickly, so that's another drawback for me. I'm not used to it. So let's have a look. You see, it looks crazy. Maybe I can do something with it. Here's my paint, looking crazy. So I'm going to continue and show you the result when I finish. I didn't film the second session. I mainly adjusted some of the colors and used acrylic markers to define the shapes, details, and contrasts more clearly. That was enough to pull the painting together. But when I finished it that evening, I still wasn't convinced. It felt too crazy, and I actually thought acrylic on canvas probably wasn't for me. Then I looked at exactly the same painting the next morning, and suddenly it worked. Nothing had changed in the painting. I had simply stopped seeing all the problems individually and I started seeing the whole thing. And now I really like it. I think what I like is partly its freedom. It is cartoonish and a little crazy, but it feels like me. I'm even thinking about exploring this kind of city digitally. And strangely enough, after deciding that acrylic on canvas wasn't for me, I can now imagine painting another one. So the experiment did exactly what an experiment should do. It taught me what I would change next time. And it made me want to try again. These two paintings went wrong in completely different ways. The watercolor was my first plein air attempt, under time pressure with a ruined brush. Watercolor had been my main painting medium when I returned to painting years ago, but I rarely used it in a very traditional watercolor way. I tended to work with thicker, more opaque color, almost more like gouache or oil paint. The acrylic was a familiar kind of image, but in medium I had very little experience with. I'd only used acrylics a few times before, mostly on paper and only once on canvas. In both cases, I knew I would go back and try again. I almost always do. And perhaps that's what these two experiments reminded me of. Going back doesn't always mean changing everything. Sometimes you fix what isn't working. Sometimes you understand what you need to do differently next time. And sometimes you look at the same painting the next morning and realize you like it after all.